you'll see the one jump in FY17, you might wonder what's going on there. That is because we tied the actual vehicle replacement to a vehicle replacement schedule, so that shows that the vehicle being replaced. Some other inflations, salaries are inflated by 3%, healthcare was by 7%, so those are some staff recommendations. Next slide. This is your current existing debt, so this is what's currently on the books for principal and interest. As you can see, that's decreasing each year as you pay it off. And this is broken out by non-growth and growth. So as I mentioned, you can go in a model and say what the existing debt, what projects it's based on, and how much of that is growth versus non-growth. So the red portion, the non-growth, will be paid by user rates, and the blue will be paid by connection fees. This is a 5-year snapshot of your CIP. Project type is broken down by non-growth and growth. So again, non-growth is user rates, growth is connection charges. Yeah. And the project that we were talking about previously would show up in the treatment plant line. So a portion of it is being allocated to non-growth and a portion to growth. I'll give you a little more specifics. Right now it's slated to be 50% paid by rates, 40% by connection charges, and 10% by the hauling fees. Then you can see there's other, there's definitely other projects that are already in there. So sewer line replacement, pump stations, and shooting equipment. Next slide. This is just a breakdown by funding source for each of those. So you can see your non-growth, user-related projects are mainly going to be loans, 54%. And on the growth side, you can see you're taking out some bonds there. Next slide. So as I mentioned, there's typically 2 reserves to recommend. The first is just an operating maintenance reserve. This serves kind of a working capital or a rainy day fund. So we recommend 90 days of operating, so about 25% of the operating expenses. Now, if you already have that amount in your cash balance, then there's no contribution needed if you already have 90 days, and that is the case here. So we're not actually recommending any contribution here. There's no additional expenses. And the other one, next slide, what we call a 3R, repair, replacement, rehabilitation reserve. And what we do here is we look at, what should we be spending on reinvestment, and we do this as detailed as the data available. So if you actually have pipe materials and when they were put in the ground and the different replacement costs and when they're coming due, we can do an analysis of that, or we can just use the book value that's given the useful lives. I think in this case we just had a proxy of rather basic data in terms of system assets. And then we look at what are we planning on spending. So back to that CIP slide, what are those projects that are going to be spent? And if there's a delta there, if there's a difference between what you should be spending and what you are spending, then we would say, okay, you contribute something to a reserve to maintain that. What we've looked in the model is that your current capital spending is adequate, and so what we're showing is there, again, is no contribution to this reserve either. So again, this is not adding cost. So taking all of those previous costs, we put those together, and what we have here is the revenue requirements for user rates. This is current users. So again, the operating maintenance expenses for the next 5 years, your capital expenditures, anything existing debt, any cash funding of CIP, any projected debt service, and again, there's no reserve contribution. You'll see there's this line, cumulative capital cash flow shortfall. Now that would be, as I mentioned, if you don't set the connection fee to what it needs to be, or growth does not occur, then the user rates would have to bear that. So if that was the case, there would be an amount showing up here that user rates would have to pay. So you take the operating costs, add those to the capital, and that gives us our total revenue requirements.
What was the fiscal year 2013?
The revenue requirement? I don't have exactly. I might be able to. Some of the slides, I think they showed a 13 number, but we were just looking at the next 5 years. It's in the model, so I can certainly get that for you. Yeah, the only items that we're really adding since we're not contributing to any reserves, there's no real, new sources of funds that are being added, just whatever's being done in CIP. There's a minimal increase in the O&M expenses just for inflation. The existing debt service is what you're currently paying on the books, so there's nothing there. So now we're going to go to the financial plan. So pulling that line from 2 slides ago to the total revenue requirement, as I mentioned, less of any miscellaneous. Miscellaneous revenues are main ones here, be any interest income or any penalties. The largest here, I believe, is actually sludge haul or septic fees. So that's about $200,000 there. So subtracting that from your total requirement, it gives you how much you need to collect from your users, the net revenue. We compare that with what your current rates would produce, given the same growth scenario, and then you see if there's a surplus or shortfall each year. And then the last line there is what I recommended annual rate increases would be each year. So then 2 years of 5.8%, followed by 3 years of 3%, just to keep up with escalation costs. So now the actual impact of that on rates and sample bills. This is your current rate structure. We haven't proposed any alternative rate structure. This is continuing your current structure and just increasing the rate as percentage increases. So currently for metered customers, you have a minimum charge per quarter of 10,000 gallons included. Anything above that is charged on a per 1,000 gallons basis. It's currently $84.40. Anything above that is $8.44. If you are non-metered, you are charged for 15,000 gallons. So applying those 5.8, 5.8, and the 3.3s shows you what the rates would be. So customers don't really care what their rates are, they care what their bill is going to be. So if you go to the next slide, you can see what an actual bill would be. So on the left column here is various usages, quarterly usage, with the 3 in bold being your residential average, all customer average, and then commercial average. See what their current bill is now, and then what it would go up to in each of the subsequent years. So residential customers are looking at about a $6 increase for 14, $5 or so, and so on and so forth.
Can I stop you just for a minute? The current rate structure and projections. Is this rate the rate that needs to be so that you break even?
Yeah, the current is what customers are currently paying, and then with those increases in the financial plan, the 5.8, that's what they would be for a year. So yeah.
To break even.
Exactly.
To meet your revenue
Requirements.
requirement.
So if they don't meet the revenue projections, then the rates would have to go up.
Well,
Well, this is them to meet.
it does go up.
But this,
Even if you don't meet,
this assumes that major facilities fees or connection fees, or whatever you want to call them, are set at the recommended level of 16,100 per ELU. If that is set higher, then I guess then the rates could go lower, but if it's not set at that, then that, as Michael said earlier, that shortfall's got to be made up somewhere. And one of the places where it could be made up would be make the rates go high. So these rate increases, which are the recommended rate increases, which are shown here, assume that the connection fee or major facilities fee is also set at the recommended level.
but it also assumes that you've got a certain level of connection fees.
Yes.
And if that doesn't happen, the rates will go up.
Yes. Yes. The connection fees do not cover their costs, and that ultimately has to be borne by the existing users. So this chart is actually a comparison to surrounding utilities. The 2 in green there, the bottom one is your current average residential bill. So this is for 12,000 gallons per quarter. You can see it's $101.28. Implementing the rates for FY14, that 5.8% increase would give them a bill of $107.16. So we're not moving up any higher, just above where they are now. You can see they're above middle to low of the pack. So
That's the average bill?
Mm-hmm.
the average of all those places is the one $47.64. So it has had a lot of places.
Hartford County's only $42.
And of course, some of these don't reflect the employer's done an increase, so this is reflecting your increase of 14, but these are just the latest rates for any of the other places. So now we're just gonna touch upon the capital chart for commercial fees. So we're calling it the major facilities fee. The point of the fee is to offset the capital costs of major large backbone capacity in the system, so any large interceptors, pumping stations, treatment facilities. Your current fee for residential is $8,000 for a new home, and existing home is $3,500. And then commercial industrial is $3,500 per equivalent living unit, which is 220 gallons per day. And they're currently, you must buy a minimum of 4. The proposed fee calculation takes into both historical and future costs of your capital, and then divides by the number of ELUs available. So currently in the model is about $120 million, divided by 7,450 ELUs, giving you 16,100. Assuming that number going forward, we look at your revenues on the growth-related side. So you currently have some existing benefit assessments, and then on top of that, the major facilities fee. This is giving the new proposed number, gives you your total revenues, taking out any growth-related expenses, so the existing debt you're currently paying is growth-related, any projected debt service, and any cash flow in CIP, gives you your total expenses, and then subtracting those expenses from your revenues gives you your surplus or shortfall. And as you can see here, currently a surplus in each year, and then the ending balance for that. So now, if there was a shortfall, it would show up in that last line that would then need to be borne by user rates. That's what I have.
And the FY13 revenue was shown on that page 27, there, 2.9.
Is that just for capital?
You had asked about that previously.
Oh, yeah.
That's just gonna be growth.
Yeah, so that's not total, that's connection fee, if that's what you.
And you're hoping to get 3.7 for next year. It's 2.9 for 2013.
Yeah, once again, that's a good point that I think is worth reiterating, is that those revenue projections there assume that the major facilities fee is set at the $16,100 per ELU level.
Oh,
If it is
that's
set,
the one.
if it is set less than that, then those numbers are gonna be smaller, obviously.
On the calculation of your major facilities fees, you suggest that we are gonna spend $119 million.
It's actually will.
Do you have a list in here on what we're getting for $119 million?
That's not all new costs. It's actually, it's called a hybrid approach. So you look as customers are buying into the existing system as well. So all the customers that are currently paying the user rates have already bought into the system. So it's both looking at historical cost of the systems based on your system assets, plus projects that are coming on board. So new growth related CIP. So not the entire 119, it's new CIP.
So this is paying back some of the money that you spent in the past.
Yeah, so there's 3 methods. There's the buy-in method, where you just look at what the historical cost is and a customer buying into that. And then there's the incremental method, which is just looking at new CIP, and then the hybrid is kind of a weighted average of those.
Can I ask? If wastewater major facilities fee, it was hookups for 2.5 in 2013. If you're gonna double the rate, why wouldn't it be 5.0 for, at least for fiscal year 14?
Which one is that?
Wastewater major facilities fees on the wastewater capital cash flow.
You're assuming it's going to double. Are you anticipating less hookups this year, 2013?
From the 2.5 to 3.5? This, they're based on the, growth projection provided by customer types, whether it's residential or commercial, industrial, so it may
Less
be.
than- So growth projections are anticipated to go down.
No, the growth is on, if it's on the customer and user side. Slide 8, so that's the growth rate, so they just. Slide 8.
Michael, you know, they have the model and they put the data in and they crunch the numbers, but they don't have visibility on what the projected or anticipated growth is, so they relied on input from the county staff for many of the data elements that get entered into the model, one of which is the growth projections, and those were provided by Development Services Division, and I'm going to give the mic to Cordell, who will give you a brief snapshot of what those look like. And so those, on that revenue chart that we were just looking at, that projected revenue is a function of, I believe it's as simple as multiplying the major facilities fee by the anticipated number of ELUs gives you your projected revenue. So it's one of the major components of that then is the growth projection.
Yeah, and I probably can't explain all of the exact percentages of growth, but to give you an idea of what we did to come up with the next few years is we obviously knew pretty well what our FY13 was going to be when we were doing this. It was January, and so we had 6 months of previous information on what our connection fees were, and knowing the development and those plans that were coming in and through the approval process, we could fairly well determine what we anticipated for the last 6 months of 13. So then from beyond, I think that we saw a slight drop in the residential. When you look at the apartments, there was a significant amount of apartments constructed in the latter part of 12 and beginning of FY13. So there's a slight drop. Overall, you can still see that we did project for 14 a slight increase. How that actually translates down to the major facility fees, I'm not 100% sure in what that could be, but maybe I can talk to Mike and get the connection between our growth rate and his 3.5. But then continuing on, we looked at in detail the projects for each one of our sewer shed areas or treatment plant areas, and projected out anticipated connections for residential and commercial, and then there was one other category that we called existing residential because it was charged at a different rate for those that have sewer line in front of their properties but aren't physically connected to them yet.
Councilwoman Brumell, I believe that you requested and I think have been provided with an electronic copy of the rate model, which is a quite complex document, but if you're interested in looking at what are those great growth projections per year, which again came from the Department of Public Works, that is one of the schedules that are in that thing is a giant spreadsheet that lists what are all those. So you can, if you wanted to, you can get to that level of detail.
Councilwoman Bowlesby, do you have any questions?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Do you have any other questions, Councilwoman?
No.
Any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Hunt, could I add one more thing because it's important to tie the two presentations. If the decision was not to go with the MBR technology and knowing that we've invested, over 2.6 million, part of the 3 is land and such. Based on projects that have engineering of this type, it's estimated that 50 to 60% of the engineering costs would become expense, and the remainder could be reused. That's a rough estimate. But a reminder that since bond funds have been used to perform the engineering and such, once it gets to the point of not being used, bond funds cannot support that, and therefore it becomes expense. And the expense would have to be recaptured through the rates in 2014.
You did get up fast enough. I have another question. On page 11, you have a pie chart that has operations and maintenance expenses, current expenses. And I guess, can you, off the top of your head, tell me whether Cecil County's total operating maintenance expenses are comparable industry averages, or not?
I can say in the scope, it wasn't necessarily part of the study to
No,
do
I
that.
realize that.
Yeah, I don't notice anything that jumps out that's extremely high in terms of, typically you're gonna see your salaries being a larger portion, that makes sense. Utilities, energy, most operating costs are about 80% fixed, so they're not gonna vary, other than probably chemicals and energy are the only real things that are gonna change. So,
Well, salaries can change.
Typically not,
You
yeah.
can increase or reduce personnel.
you can, yeah, certainly remove personnel, but it's not a typical
I
thing.
guess the one thing that we haven't put on the table for discussion is the expense of operating the system. In other words, we're assuming that we're doing a good job with our operations and expenses. And another way of keeping rates low is to cut costs. And I'm not sure that we've done that analysis. That wasn't your job.
Right.
Your job was given certain parameters, what do we need to do? In my mind, the question is, are our costs of operating our system fair, and is there any way that we can cut costs?
Yeah, it's definitely something you can look into. There's usually only so far you can cut, so you get to bare bones. I haven't looked at the system here to know, but that's an efficiency and effectiveness type of study, is that's something we've done other places.
And when I raise that question, it doesn't mean, or I'm not implying, that there are any extraordinary costs, and I'm not suggesting that we're not doing a good job.
That's a fair, you and I have talked about that before, I think that's a fair question. I think I would say we've looked at it in part. We've looked at the personnel portion of the equation. You'll recall we engaged the services of the Maryland Center for Environmental Training to do a staffing study to see, what is the recommended staffing level for a wastewater utility of this size, et cetera, and they came back in with an answer that showed we were short-staffed. I think their number was 25, and I think we had, 15 or 16 at that time, and we're working to close that gap. Part of that was hire some contractual employees. Part of that is look for more things to outsource. More of that is try to find ways to be more efficient. So I agree we have not looked at that question in total, but I think we have looked at least part of it.
And I think part of our problem in Cecil County is that we have many plants scattered around a large geographic area, that many of them are we don't have the critical mass. If we had all our systems in one place, if we had one treatment plant, we could be a lot more efficient and probably reduce our costs. But when we have so many plants so far apart, it creates many inefficiencies.
Sure, we lose that economy of scale. I don't think we're ever going to get to having just one integrated system, but we are working to consolidate them where we can. You might recall from the wastewater CIP discussion that the Highland Sewer Project, which will convey sewage from Highlands down to Meadowview, thereby allowing us to decommission that Highlands packaged wastewater treatment plant and achieve some small economy of scale. So we're looking for opportunities to improve that.
Hopefully, the operation and maintenance of the pumping station will be a lot less at Highlands than a plant.
That's
So
the
if you have a question.
Yeah. Could you give me an example of what your contractual services are, which accounts for like roughly 600% of the budget?
Yeah, I'll take a shot at it, and then Jeff will fill in any gaps. For example, we outsource grass cutting at the treatment plant and the pump stations. We outsource laboratory testing. Let me say most laboratory testing.
Yeah, laboratory testing, grass cutting, some SCADA work that we do, we outsource part of that. Electrical repairs.
Sludge hauling, they outsource that to Solid Waste Management Division.
Is that about it, Jeff?
That's all, I know there's a number for it, but they don't come to
All
mind.
right, thank you very much. Better get up quick.
Yeah.
Director Flanagan, I did want to share the
Yeah.
numbers.
So they didn't do
The
it.
numbers I got were from Tony DiGiacomo, and it was, assuming household, increase, let's see, population of 18,237 increase by 2030. Households 6,706, and then you multiply that by 225 gallons per day, and that gives you the 1,508,850 gallons per day at Seneca Point for 2030. But that's at the current growth rate from Will Masco.
But does that take into consideration commercial industrial growth or just residential?
Just residential.
Aren't we working really hard to find people to move here and bring jobs and capital
It's
investment?
all about strategy and where we're investing this money, too.
All right, the next item on our agenda is the council legislative meeting agenda review. Mr. Massey, could you run through that for the council, please?
Sure, we have our minutes to be approved for the previous legislative session, our public comments and comments from the council members. We have resolution.
Can I stop you just for a minute? While we were having our meeting, a new agenda was down in front of us. What's the difference between the newest, I guess it's labeled number 5, is that the newest?
I didn't think I had it visual.
There's no changes.
Okay, so
It's just they wanted to.
we added, so you added another one, but for example.
Thank you, Rob.
It should
I wanted to make sure, I wasn't sure it was.
That's it.
So we have 4 resolutions to be introduced. Resolution 35 is the appointment of a member to the Animal Care and Control Oversight Committee. That was Councilman Dunn's appointment of Laura Hudson. Resolution 36 is the appointment to the Historic District Commission. That is to reappoint Mr. Dawson and someone else.
Milt Diggins.
Thank you.
Milt Diggins and Mr. Dawson would be a new appointment. Milt Diggins is a reappointment.
Weren't we asking for credentials, or at least the resume that they filled out for each of these appointments? Something to, that we can look at.
Yes, we should try to get those, the actual applications. And, resolution 37, we won't introduce, I guess, because the council hasn't determined who they want to replace,
Right, that'll be
the
the
chairman. And then Resolution 38 is Dr. McCarthy's. He may want to speak to it about the opposition to the Maryland Firearm Safety Act.
Councilman McCarthy, do you want to speak to that now? We've all received a copy of that resolution.
Yeah, I can speak to it now. Just give me 1 second. The nature of this has been brought to life by the Maryland Firearm Safety Act of 2013. Basically, a number of people that I've spoken with, as well as myself, believe that this is an overstatement of the government's constitutional authority. I might read this if you so be entertained. Whereas the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution protects the individual right to keep and bear arms, and whereas the Second Amendment was adopted in 1791 as part of the United States Bill of Rights, bans this, and whereas Maryland General Assembly has enacted the Maryland Firearm Safety Act of 2013, which bans the sale of 45 types of rifles of standard use and standard magazines, and requires a license to buy handguns and submit to fingerprinting as part of the application process. And furthermore, the council believes that the Maryland State Firearm Safety Act of 2013 violates the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution. And the council desires to proclaim its opposition to the Firearm Safety Act of 2013. And the council believes that the constitutionality of the Maryland Firearm Safety Act should be closely analyzed by Cecil County government in order to protect the constitutional right of the citizens of Cecil County to keep and bear arms under the Second Amendment. Now therefore, it be hereby resolved that the County Council of Cecil County, Maryland opposes the Maryland Firearm Safety Act of 2013, and it be further resolved that the County Council of Cecil County encourages its citizens to support a petition to drive the Maryland Firearm Safety Act of 2013 on referendum so that voters of Maryland can oppose this act. And furthermore, be it resolved that the County Council of Cecil County endeavors to engage in the analysis of the constitutionality of the Maryland Firearm Safety Act of 2013 in order to determine whether the Second Amendment right of the citizens of Cecil County to keep and bear arms has been violated. That's how I would like to present it. Is there any questions?
I think I'll support it. It was brought to my attention. I went to a Campaign for Liberty meeting, and in it they discussed researching the nullification process, using that process to nullify this law, maybe some other laws that the state of Maryland is imposing on us that might infringe on our constitutionality or rights under the Constitution. And I am interested in supporting an ordinance, not a resolution, but an ordinance that would pursue the nullification process. But I see the value in this as well. We're encouraging the citizens to participate in the petition process to oppose the gun control act.
Okay, can I interrupt just a minute? And I agree. I think this resolution does three things. It makes a statement. It encourages citizens to support the petition drive to put this to referendum. And, to your point, it continues to engage in the analysis of the constitutionality of this act, which means to me that we should be considering all other choices, all other options, all other actions that we can take, okay? So I think this is a good first step. It does not preclude or eliminate any other steps, whether it's nullification or anything else, which I think needs a lot of analysis and investigation before we just jump to conclusions. I'm not sure that that is the best method, but it's an option for evaluation, and I think that we need to get a legal opinion before we take on anything else. But I think the biggest factor here is to ask the citizens of Cecil County to seriously consider if this is what they like or they don't. And if they don't, they need to sign a petition to get this thing on referendum. If they're in support of where we believe this issue is.
Once again, we're in agreement.
Okay. So anyway, this can be modified, this can be changed, but I think this is a first good step. It'll be introduced tonight. And if there's changes required or amendments needed, we can do that. It will not be adopted tonight. It will be introduced, and then at our next legislative session will be considered.
If I might just basically address Councilwoman Brunel's comment. The idea of nullification I do not think will fly. It's happened at the federal and state level for years and years and years. There's a supremacy clause in the federal constitution, which means that you have to really abide by your higher superior powers. And I do believe the state is a higher authority than Cecil County. I think that even if we should have an ordinance saying that we null and void it, it would not be enforceable in any way, shape, or form.
Mr. Dunn, did you have a comment?
Sure, and I'm okay with the resolution as well. Alan, could you speak to, we received a copy this morning that said it had been revised Tuesday AM. Are there any major differences between what we received here this morning and what was in the book, or can you?
No, there is absolutely no major changes, just simple words. Simple words.
All right, any other questions
I'm
about this
support it.
proposed?
Totally support it.
Okay, next, Mr. Mattson.
Then we have a number of resolutions that the council can consider. Resolution 19 involves the appointment of Raymond Hydell to the Public Safety Pension
Can I
Plan.
stop you just for a minute? All these resolutions were introduced previously.
Yes, sir. So that's a appointment. Then resolution 21 through 34 are amendments to the budget ordinance to balance some changes, and Mr. Hobson can speak to individual resolutions if we need to.
Does anyone have any amendments or questions about any of these resolutions?
Budget and we talked about all these.
We have talked about them previously. We have introduced them previously. We've had the opportunity to ask questions previously. I guess there's a long list, and I'm trying to hopefully answer questions and make it, at least be prepared for amendments now, so that our meeting doesn't go till 1 o'clock in the morning.
I totally agree.
Okay, so if there's issues or amendments, it'd be nice to hear about them now. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on.
And then under new business, we have a budget transfer for the Cecil County Public Schools that's in your packet for $73,114 that Mr. Robinson could make explanation if you'd like it.
There is a part of the Maryland code that says that certain things need to be passed between the school board and the legislative body of the county. And this information is related to that. Essentially, it is talking about grants. It goes into detail behind this, behind page 1, to do certain things and move funding around. It does not increase the amount that the county is paying to the Board of Education. It is essentially a housekeeping event by the Board of Ed. There is a section of the Maryland Code. It is Division 2, Title 5, Subtitle 1, and it goes on for 2 pages. But the end result of it is the fact that if the request within here is that the county fiscal authority shall approve the amount of funds. I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. If the county fiscal authority fails to take action within 30 days, the failure to take action constitutes approval. So this is basically introducing the information, but the grants can be received by the state if they're of the grants to be received by the Board of Education. Their authority, they are laying out what's being done with those grants.
Is it the pleasure of the board to pass this budget amendment tonight, or do we need to wait?
The amount of it is $73,114.
I'm okay with it.
Does anybody have any questions on it? So, are we going to just pass it? And when did the 30-day time clock start?
I believe it was on March 26th.
Are there any questions regarding the budget amendment? You have a question? Okay.
That would be all.
All right, next item on our agenda is the council manager report.
I wanted to let the council members know that the Citizens Budget Advisory Board did not feel they would be ready on April 30th to give their recommendation. So they asked that they could give their recommendation at the work session on May 7th. And so they won't be presenting on April 30th. And that would coincide with the council's work sessions on the budget for, would be the next week, May 14th and 16th at 1:30 during their afternoon. And I was asked to keep the redistricting commission, since the chairman was not able to serve, to set the first meeting for May 15th at 7 p.m. in the Elk Room. We have Evelyn Potter from the election office to explain the precincts and where the boundaries are, as well as David Black from the planning and zoning, who does the GIS, and he can give population figures so that they can understand some of what they'll be asked to do. Mr. Mesnick from IT has been looking with some other vendors about the pricing to do our video recording, to see if he could, what other vendors would be interested in what pricing. So he's working on that. The administration has confirmed that the Bay Cabinet can meet with the Cecil County Council and Executive on Thursday, May 30th at 9:30 at the Donaldson Brown Center. And so we'll be formatting an agenda for that.
What was that time?
9:30 on May 30th. That's a Thursday.
And are we first meeting at the Conway Day?
And my understanding is it will start at Donaldson Brown, and then they will bus us to the Conway Dam.
Okay.
We wanted to poll the council again that we would like to send Mako reservations in to get a discounted rate. So just wanted to poll everybody to see if they're planning to attend.
I always do.
I plan on going.
I plan on going.
Okay. Then, let's see. The only other thing on the 24th, which would be next week, our regular meeting will be held after the 8 o'clock meeting that BPAC will have in the room, where Annabelle Basu will be presenting the Susquehanna Workforce Group manpower analysis.
The Bay Council is May 30th, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I just want to make sure, because we jumped back to April.
Finished it in the fall.
Thank you very much.
The one he's been presenting.
Council
Finished it in
items,
the fall.
Mr. Dunn, would you like to start? Mr. McCarthy?
Beginning of December, then I had it again.
Councilwoman Goldstein?
Yeah, I have a couple of things. On Wednesday, I went to along with President Hodge and Executive Moore to the employee recognition lunch, and it was the first time I had ever been there, and it was really a very nice affair. And then later that day, I attended the Commission on Aging. On Thursday, I had, thank you very much to Dr. Alan McCarthy, who became my driver, who took me to Charles County. We spoke before their charter board, and I was really excited about this. Charles County has code home rule, and they formed a charter board to proceed to hopefully have charter passed in their county. And I went down, and Alan helped, and we did a presentation. Very long drive, very long drive. And then yesterday, I went to Earth Day at Elkton Middle School and had a great time. And also, it's come to my attention that I think there was some drug seminar or something, Diana, where a resident said, gee, it's too bad the rest of the commissioners can't be here. I think it's real important for us as commissioners who attend these meetings to explain that we're all somewhere. Very few of us are sitting home. I know that Executive Moore and Robert Hodge had things that night. That was the night that Alan and I were in Charles County. So I think that if someone comes up to us, I think it's incumbent upon us to represent all the commissioners and say they would have loved to have been here, but they are somewhere else. That's all. That's all I have.
I'll take that to heart. I don't always know what everyone's schedule is. Sometimes the perception is there, and
I agree, but we can't all be everywhere. That's the thing.
oh, that's so true. I agree. Well, I'll go ahead and talk about the seminar. It was on the drug awareness seminar. This time it was on community policing, and we had Sheriff Bain and Sheriff Janney both attend. I was very pleased that the college videotaped it, and a lot of really good information was captured. To Sheriff Bain's credit, he acknowledged that, you know, while he is able to do community policing in the county, in his county, you can't do so if you don't have an adequate police force. Now, I have asked Sheriff Janney for the correct numbers of what is the per thousand population. How many police officers do we have representing each taxpayer, per thousand population? The national average, I believe, was 2.74. The initial numbers that him and Barry had come up with were 0.81. Now, if that's the case, you know, certainly is justified, but I would encourage Barry, Sheriff Janney, that he has to show us this. Sheriff Bain has a budget analyst. He also has a criminal researcher. I forget what the title of that was. And providing us the information is critical to assessing the needs. But the other information that I thought it was interesting how Sheriff Bain polices Harper County as opposed to what Sheriff Janney does. And there are things that we can pick and choose that might work here in Cecil County. I would, once I get the video up, I would encourage other people to go look at it. One of the things he does is has 10 community policing districts in his county. And he's got a commanding officer that's responsible for each of those districts. And he uses the CompStat process for when there's a problem in that district, he comes up with a solution, and then he goes back and reassesses how well it has been managed. His website contains criminal statistics for the area. You can go there and see what the latest crimes are. Barry is very interested in incorporating that into our website, and he's revamping the Cecil County website. As we saw, it was ironic that this happened with the PNC bank robber. Once Cecil Wigg had posted a picture of the bank robber, the police department was flooded with calls and helped apprehend the person, the suspect. And that's a form of community policing. So there's a number of tools, I think, that we could utilize in the county that could help Barry to get, his job done. And I think there's a lot of willing citizens that are wanting to participate in this kind of structure. So it was a positive, respectful conversation. I wanted to remind everybody that the river sweep is this Saturday. You can sign up at hitourtrails.com, I believe, and it's from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And there's 4 locations that you can pick from in Cecil County.
I also forgot to mention that Point to Point is Sunday at Bear Hill. And Bear Hill Nature Center gets some of the proceeds from that. And we're working there, getting ready for it on Saturday.
I just wanted to remind everyone, next Tuesday morning, be early here at 8 o'clock so you can hear Anna Bond's presentation. Our county council meeting may start a little late until after he's finished his presentation, but I think that his presentation is well worthwhile for the public and for the council members to participate. We did not receive the information that we requested from some of our county council attorney applicants, so we will not go into closed session to discuss that council unless someone has something to discuss. But we do not have all the information that we requested from last week, so I see no need to go into closed session to talk about the county council attorney.
Do they seem that organization, do they seem interested?
Oh, yes, I just don't think that they've provided what we asked for yet.
Okay.
There's been no conversation or communication otherwise. Okay, is there any other business for the council at this time?
Oh, I did want to point out, when you had said that it didn't take into account the number of projections that I provided, actually it did, because it was assuming 225 gallons per day per household. The average is actually 200 gallons per day, and that was taking the projection that was currently being used, and we were very close to what the number was.
Can you,
So I'll
can you
send this
pass that information on to all the council members for their analysis? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn our work session?
I move to adjourn the work session.
Is there a second? All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll be back here at 1:30 for the presentation.